Hi everyone, Kush this side. Welcome back to my channel. We are in session number 2 in our Docker 101 journey. For those of us who are here for the first time, do check out the video number 1. That basically is where we have kind of introduced ourselves to Docker. We did a little demo, and today what we're going to do is what we discussed over there, we will do today. That is three things. One, we will go through the Docker architecture in depth. Second, we will understand Dockerfile. We'll actually do a deep dive into what are the different instructions that constitute a Dockerfile. And third, of course, is the demo that entails, and then we'll take it from there. All right. For the convenience of all of us, so that our journey in this learning setup is as easy and as smooth as it could get. I have linked in the description for the video one as well, the specific timestamp index, so that if you want to see a specific thing, you don't have to go through the entire video. I'll do the same for all the video uploads that I do on my channel. I also keep adding all the important references and any code repos, any links that I talk about, I refer, I share, so that everything is handy to you all. With that being said, still, if you all have any questions, any doubts, anything that you all want me to pick up, speak about, please put it in the comment section and I will try to curate that into the upcoming sessions. All right. With that being said, I'm going to get started. I'm going to quickly share my screen. First thing that we will talk about is how to install a Docker. So last time we spoke about Docker, we spoke about what Docker is, why does it, why do we need it, and so on and so forth. But I realized we didn't go through the installation section, so we will do that. What I'm sharing is again an official Docker community page on how the installation should work, what needs to be done, and everything is over here. Okay, or how you can install Docker desktop on your system. So I use a Mac. For me, I've typically used the brew command to install the Docker, and I will share that again in the video description. Please go through this page and set up the Docker desktop for you. One interesting piece, if you all are using Windows system, you have to first set up Windows subsystem for Linux, which is WSL, because Docker is Linux native. So you will have to set up that encapsulation for it to work. Again, all the instructions are provided in the link. So if you see, you select anything and then it tells you what do you need. You need WSL and then you do the installation for Docker. All right. Now, with that being said, we will go to the Docker architecture, which we were wanting to talk about. So at a very high level, Docker follows a simple client-server architecture. There's a client who sends request to the server. Server is the one who fulfills the request. So in this big picture, client requests are sent with the help of the Docker CLIs that we have been seeing and talking about. Docker build, Docker run, Docker push, Docker pull. All these are Docker CLI client requests which are sent to the server, which is Docker daemon or Docker D. These are done with the help of REST API calls, and Docker D basically does the heavy lifting of doing everything, building the container, running the container, taking care of volumes, networks, everything else. All right. And then the next component that you have is a Docker hub or a registry, which basically is the repository where all your images are stored. So by default, Docker has its own registry, public, which is Docker Hub. So if you don't specify anything, by a matter of fact that look, this is my Docker registry. I want you to connect to pull and push images. It will presume, and it will assume it is Docker Hub. But you can also specify any other registry for that matter. For instance, JFrog Artifactory could be your Docker registry. Okay, so this at a high level is your architecture of Docker. You've got your client, which is done with the help of Docker CLI commands. You have your Docker daemon, which takes care of everything really. And then you have your Docker registry. Okay, now with that being said, I'm going to move to topic number 3, which is Dockerfile. So let's see about Dockerfile. What is a Dockerfile? We spoke about it last time. So basically, Dockerfile is the way through which our Docker images are created. These are set of instructions which instructs to Docker daemon how to build your image. And every instruction has a specific task, right? And we will understand each of these instructions, at least the key ones, the high level ones today. So starting here, as you can see, it is a text document. Again, I mentioned Dockerfile is a file has to be written like that, D capital Dockerfile, no extensions. And that is what has all the commands and instructions to build your image or assemble an image. What are these instructions? All of these are specified over here. We will go through the key ones. You can go and check all the other ones out. And again, put up in the comment section if you need explanation or any demo or any sample POC for understanding those more in depth. Okay, today we will go through the key ones. Very first argument or very first instruction for your Docker file always is the from instruction, which tells you the base image. See, any application that you build is on certain base setup. For instance, I'm building a Python application. I may need the Python executable or the Alpine version of it. Similarly, for Node.js application, I need the node as the base image. So you need a base image to begin building your image, and that is done with the help of the from instruction. So typically, the pattern is from your image as the image name. Typically, we don't use the as setup. We just say from, for instance, from busybox version. So there is one instruction over here, as you can see, arg, which interestingly is the only instruction you can give before from, which basically helps you give a key value variable for your version or anything else. So you can define a variable and that then use that variable in the from instruction. That's what is done over here. You have defined a version latest and then you say from instruction busybox colon version. So it takes the latest or whatever is defined in this version variable. So that is your from instruction. Next, what you use is the work dir, which sets up the working directory for your container. See, you're copying your application, right, from your local system into the containers ecosystem. It has to copy somewhere. It has to go somewhere. If you do not define a work directory, it will go to that default folder structure by which your base image has been set up, which is very problematic because you do not know how that will pan out. So as a best practice, as a good setup, you always specify the work dir, which is with the help of the work directory. Okay. After the work directory, what you do, you have to copy the files from your local onto the container. That is done with the help of the copy instruction. You can copy files and directories. Sometimes you also want to add things apart from files and directories. Say you want to add an artifactory URL or some URL. You can do that with the help of the add instruction. You can add local or remote files and directories, which could be URLs or a link. It could also be a zip file. For instance, in this example, as you can see, I'm copying it from a URL, a zip file, into the place. So you have add, from, and to. Or I can copy the whole repo. I can do that with the help of the add instruction because add is not limited to files. It gives you the benefit of using additional things, a URL, a zip file, etc. So that is add instruction. Then what do you need? Once you have done your folders, all your dependencies, your code is available, you want to run it, right? So you basically run some commands. So at the build time, if you want to run any commands, you use the run instruction. Now my application has been kind of set up. Now I want to say, how do I start the application? On which port will my application be exposed on and listening on? That is done with the help of the expose instruction. It tells you which port your application will again listen on. Now, once that is done, how do my application launch really? How do my container really gets launched? It's what's the executable and what's the default argument or default command by which my execute by container is going to launch. So that is done with the help of Entrypoint. You can specify the default executable with the help of Entrypoint command. For example, I have a Python application. So typically to run a Python application, I will say Python 3, say server.py. So this Python 3 becomes my default executable. Now server.py becomes the default command, which you can specify using the command instruction. And these two are precisely what we will see more in depth in today's demo. We will see a simple image that we create with all of the instructions I just spoke about. And then we will have two more demos to explain command and entry point. All right. Okay, so these are basically the high level instructions which is present in almost all of the Docker files, but please go through all the others and let me know in comment section if there's any specific instruction or list of instruction that you want me to deep dive. All right. With that being said, I'm going to stop my screen share and re-share my screen with Visual Studio. All right, so here I am. Let me clear the terminal. So right now, what you can see on your screen is a very simple Docker file with all the instructions we spoke about. I have a from Alpine latest base image instruction. Then I have specified my work directory to be /app. Then I have list of run commands that I have specified. And then I expose my image when it runs as a container on 8080 port, I have given an entry point executable default to be my script runme.sh. And because the script itself is running, it doesn't need any argument. The command is set to blank right now. Okay. So this at a very high level is my Docker file. Let me build it. So right now I'm going to my terminal, and if I see Docker image ls, I do not have any images. So let me build one. So I would say Docker build hyphen T. What name should I give? I will say demo v1 dot current directory. So it builds an image called demo v1, and we can see the images getting built as we speak, and it's done. Now when I say Docker image ls, you can see my image is created, Docker demo v1. Let's run the image. That means let's launch the container, Docker run. Now, by default, you see it's going to echo these, right? That's the run instruction given. These would be echoed in the container, but I want to see them here. So what do I have to do? I have to somehow pass an instruction at the time of launching the container to say, hey, whatever you're going to echo there in containers terminal, echo it on my host terminal. So I have to map that. That is done with the help of the IT instruction, which is hyphen interactive hyphen terminal. So I'm attaching containers terminal onto my host terminal, and then I give the name of the image demo colon v1. Okay. And when I run it, it says, hey, starting the container process, container is running, demo is complete, container exiting. That's it. We just did that. So we did a Docker file with all the instructions that we went through. We built an image out of it, and now we see the container running. All right. So this is simply how we do it. This is typically, like I said, in most cases, these are the instructions that you see in addition to the other ones. Now, let's talk about command in depth. I'll again clear the screen. So for understanding command, we have a very simple Docker file over here from base image Ubuntu. Workdir is set up, and I have given a default command of bin bash. Okay, let's build the image first. Docker build. Now here my Docker file is not Docker file only. It's Dockerfile underscore CMD. It is different, right? So I have to specify the hyphen F file name tag so that it picks up this Docker file name, which is CMD demo, say for instance, and I say in the current, build the image. What did I make a mistake? Oh, I did not give the tag. Now it's building the image. That's it. Image is built. Now when I say Docker image ls, I see one more image is created, CMD demo. Let's run it and see how it works. So by default, bin bash should execute, right? So I say Docker, and again, bin bash will be in the containers terminal. I want to attach it. So I would say hyphen IT CMD demo colon v1. See, I'm now in my terminal, which is the working directory app, because that's my work directory, correct? That's it. So by default, my container was launched with bin bash. That is how the command instruction works. Now I want to override it. How do I override? So by default, it is bin bash. I override by specifying what I want to override it with. So instead of bin bash, say for example, I want it to echo something. Okay. So I would say I have executed that. So instead of Docker run IT v1, I would say with bin bash, please echo hello world. And there you go. So I've also done an override now with my CMD. I have specified what else to execute alongside. So this is how the command instruction works. All right. I hope it's clear. Again, if you all have any questions, put it in the comment section. Command for default uh, instruction or default command for your log image when you're launching the container. Entry point default executable. Can you override? You should not, but there is a way. We'll see that. So this is my Docker entry point Docker file. Again, very simple Docker file from Alpine and the entry point instruction of a ping. What you do, ping to a pong. We'll give an IP for it. So let's view the terminal again. And what we will do is we will build this Docker file. Docker build. Again, I have to specify a file name because my Docker file is not the traditional one. I have given it another name. Tag, I would say entry point demo v1. Okay. Now at this point, my image is built from Dockerfile entry point. Now when I do Docker image ls, you can see my image is created, EP demo. Now let's run it normally, okay? No changes. I would say run, of course, interactive, entry point, demo, colon v1. And because the default executable is ping, you have to tell ping what. So I would say ping localhost. And it will start pinging the localhost. And you can see it's returning me the bytes. Okay. So this is by default. I did not specify ping because entry point is already specifying the default executable. And this you cannot override otherwise. Okay. Typically, if I do a Docker run instruction and launch my container, I cannot override the entry point instruction. I can make that happen with the help of an explicit instruction called hyphen hyphen entry point. So with this, I can explicitly say instead of ping, say for instance, do a bin sh now. And you see, now I'm inside the bin. So instead of doing a ping pong, I've executed a bin sh and my working directory is root. Make sense? So I will exit and that's pretty much it. This is entry point. So typically you do not override. If you want to override, you have to use the entry point argument. With command, you don't need that. You just follow it, follow your Docker run instruction with the command that you want to override with. And typically both are used. For example, for a Python application, Python 3 becomes my entry point and server.py becomes my command, which can change to app.py tomorrow if there is another file that I want to now execute. That is why server.py, app.py will land well with the command instruction and Python 3 will land well with entry point. You get the understanding? Entry point default executable, command default argument or default instruction. All right. With that, I'm going to stop my screen share. And that's all. That's pretty much the demo. So what did we cover today? We covered the Docker architecture. We understood how to install Docker desktop as well. Again, I'll link everything in the description. Still, if you have questions, please put in the comments. Next, we went through the Docker file in depth, saw all the important instructions. And then we had a demo for a Docker file with majorly all instructions, which typically is available across. And then we studied command and entry point in depth. All right. So with that, I'm going to end the connect for today. I hope this was an insightful session and there was some learnings that you all got. Feel free to let me know what else you want me to cover and I'll make sure I curate that for the upcoming tutorial uploads. Take care, everyone. Bye-bye.